Ferocious Humanity. Ferocious Humanity. Ferocious Humanity. Ferocious Humanity. Ferocious. What a nice word. Also, what a nice way to wake up to the reality of I cannot say anymore why I actually continue. Just give me a second to render. This was Let's Play Crash Nitro Kart 7. Okay, created. All right. Have started working on a new album that is possibly going to be called Currency, but yeah, I have to see where I'm going with this. Okay. Cookie. And more cooking. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. Well, in that sense, I don't really care. But I have just had one of these weird things where I'm not sure if I should call them breakdowns. What is recursively? Static. I don't know, sometimes I feel like a wuss despite all the things that I have been doing. And I find it frustrating, for want of a better word.
He's gonna shoot again here.
So I'm just focusing on being creative a lot. It's not that I find humanity simply annoying or something. It's more that, I mean, you cannot do things like you would like to do them, right? So, in a sense, I don't really trust myself. But what does that mean? Well, you go to the park, right? People sit around, they act super nice, and then they gossip about everyone they can get their minds on. Because this is clearly, everything is like a being of mind. I believe that what leopards do is they mostly communicate through mind. And, right, this is something that in this materialistic world is trying to be denied. And that too is something that I find really, really annoying. Because it's like you're one of the X-Men and other people come and say, oh, you're different, you know, kill him. Yeah, this is literally what's been happening in my life. Just because I start to go into nature more, it's not even so much that I mean, they just treat everyone like this. They treat themselves like this. They treat other people like this. You know, they go into attack mode and then they feel sorry for it. You know, it's this Will Smith scene at the whatever award thing this was. Yeah, personal maintenance is important, and I just opened my eyes and decided to give myself, or to keep giving in to the purpose that life apparently has for me, which is sit here and record this. Which, believe it or not, is really tedious. Right? It's this scene where Will Smith storms onto the stage, slaps someone in the face, you know, like with the righteousness of having the right to do so because somebody made a joke. And whether they staged it, I mean, come on, you can probably bet on it that there was some kind of a bargain, because they're all actors. Or he just really lost it. I mean, they're all looking for attention. And maybe this guy who made the joke, I don't know, Chris something, maybe he did it on purpose or something. Maybe he did it because they planned it, right? It's possible. It's absolutely possible that this was all staged. A performance to rile people up even more. Because they have to keep these things interesting. Otherwise, people are going to lose interest, right? That's what they are literally there for, right? To keep these things from fading into being, you know, irrelevant. Or being less good than actual life, right? You know, if they are having a tussle, then you feel like... I mean, this is like the fight between couples, right? These days, you know, you're gloating over the misery of others instead of just focusing on yourself because you're having misery, right? And then you're happy if others are having misery because then you either feel like, oh, look at that, I thought they had it all together. Well, who during these days has it all together? Like, seriously. Who during these days has it all together? I mean, do you know anyone? It's a ridiculous notion to think that anyone who's living during these times has it all together. I mean, has it all together? Well, I can tell you from experience that the people who have it all together are probably the people who spend a lot of time by themselves and figure it out for themselves. And if they've done that, and from that place a man and a woman come together, join hands and found a family, then they might manage, but you never know what life's gonna throw at them. And that will remain true for a very long time, at the very least. But what you have to then also accept and deal with is the fact that people will try to destroy this. If you find, right, like your true self, and you find a woman that resonates with that, or you're a woman and you find a man that resonates with that, because you've actually been looking and you've been really struggling, right, to the verge of wanting to take your own life, let's say. You know, let's look at this Ren character who has started to make music and who's incredibly skilled with the guitar and also verbally skilled. How much jealousy he has to endure from everyone. You know, there's nobody anymore these days that simply appreciates the fact that there are people that know how to suffer and survive the dark night of the soul, right? Because they're surviving for others, right? We don't have to stay around. I hope you do realize this. We stay around, well, in a sense also because we cannot help it. But we also stay around because we have loved ones as well. I mean, we're struggling. We're having issues. We just learned to cope in a different way. While you're still sitting at home stuffing yourself with cake, we simply started paying attention to diet. And we started to replace the method of eating cake with making art. So in the end, when you're angry at me, you're just angry at yourself because you're still stuck at stuffing yourself with cake. Or let's say, just eating meat for useless pleasure. I mean, you cannot continue to try to get just pleasure out of eating meat. And that's a fact. And what makes me say that? Well, what makes me say that is clearly my own observations of what is happening in life to people who ignore the fact that yes, you do get strength from eating meat, right? I can agree on that, but, and that's a huge bummer, you also need to invest it into things. I mean, I've seen people who ate meat for strength, and I've also seen what they turned into. I mean, they were completely imbalanced. They had this swollen right side, because that's what they, right? They ate meat for power. Yeah, you can do that. You can eat meat for power. If it's prepared right, or even just like that, you can eat meat for power. But if you're gonna get fat, then you're an idiot. So your body is something to channel stuff. You get that. But everyone you meet is just super selfish about everything, right? So they don't want power so they can support others. They just want power for themselves, right? They just want to look super sexy. They want to be the toughest guy in the room, but they never do anything for it. I mean, they just want to appear tough, but because all they do to be tough is just eat meat, well, ultimately what happens is they just sit around. They just sit around the entire day. Oh wow, sometimes all this fiddling with these controls is getting really annoying. It's getting really annoying. I mean, like, really annoying. Even making faces like this is getting really annoying. And then sometimes you just don't know, you know, how much you should still invest into creating a whole lot of content. Because the question that always remains to be true is, why are you even doing it? Right? What's the point? To say it in a bit different way. What's the point of doing it? And how artistic does it have to be? Well, that's a good, valid point for my life. How artistic does it have to be? Why are there times where I cannot leave the house? Right? And then ultimately the question, what's it all mean? I mean, what does it all mean? What's the point? Literally, what is the point of such an existence? Right? What is the bloody point? Of today's world, what is the point? Have you ever asked yourself this? Well, nothing, and that's a fact, has ever really changed. Nothing has ever really changed. In that sense, it is still the same thing. We are struggling for survival as individuals. It's just that today you're not running around for your food anymore. You're running around for attention. Okay, now let's think about, what about the lone wolf? Has the lone wolf gotten any attention? No. The lone wolf is probably running around, getting stronger, and one day he may find a woman, and then he will have a strong foundation and build his own family. Right? And that's basically what I had to say during the night. Okay, let's see what I'm gonna get to during the hike.
Okay, I have decided against leaving the house for... I mean, I have said that I wanted to go for a hike, but I also feel like, in a sense, it is no longer safe. I have slept a lot. I would say that it is hard. I have collected my laundry, which now I'm just gonna try and relax a little and just talk about ferocious humanity. I mean, you get what I'm saying, right? You get what I'm seeing. I mean, okay, you have to understand a bit about spirits, which is possibly a topic that you have tried to avoid because of your early upbringing, where you probably have been punished every time you suggested that there is things like spirits. And to a child, punishment is basically cutting it off from attention, because attention and focus, so if I focus on something, that's where the energy is flowing. That to a spirit is nourishment, which is why if you focus on a specific service, that you keep it alive. If you focus on your children, you keep them alive. So yeah, in a way, worrying mothers feed their children, right? And because we live in a world that is basically building on bullshit, and if you understand a bit about voodoo, right, so you don't need some kind of a doll that you can pierce with needles to hurt someone's energetic body. All you need is an image in your mind, and then you just pierce them with anger. You just imagine in your mind how you hurt that person, and this person will suffer. And I have had moments where I left the house somewhat prematurely, and I felt afraid for my life, just like now. In this house, which is to me like a safe space, I feel okay, but I don't even feel safe amongst my father at the moment. Also not with my mother. Because there's something about humanity that everyone's trying to hide, which is that we all have another side, right? I mean, in a sense, yeah, you are in a way like a god, but everyone's the same. It's just that some people discover more hidden potential than others. And if you are in a process of awakening, it simply means that you realize that you've been harvested. And you start to resist that. And when I say you've been harvested, I do not only point towards large corporations that suck you dry. I include your parents in this. And I have observed what parents are doing to their own child, how they suck energy out of it to make themselves feel more powerful. And that's basically what it is. Your body is designed to channel energy. And if you're weak and you're lazy and you have been taught by others to use others to make yourself feel powerful, you're gonna do that. But if you're weak, then who are you going to do it to? Why do you think I'm self-employed? So I can preserve and then channel it into what I feel like is somewhat right. I mean, right is just a word. Like, to me, the middle path. It's a reflection of the times that we're currently living in, that I choose to be a content creator instead of being out there working with others. Because everyone is so imbalanced. Everyone would rather see me fail than to help me succeed. You know, that's the times we're living in. Everyone would rather see me fail than to help me succeed. That's the area I'm living in. That's the people I'm dealing with. Everyone would rather see me fail than to help me succeed. Because they're afraid that if I succeed, I'm gonna leave. Because in a way, yeah, I can give. Apparently I have a lot of energy. And I can give a lot of energy. And that means that, in a way, I'm like a meal to them. And that's just what comes from acknowledging the fact that we are all spirits. That we are all spirits, and that you have to work hard to actually see that and to understand who's been manipulating you. Because, right, this is talking about ferocious humanity. There are people that everyone can get into your mind if they're strong enough. And I've met a lot of people that have done that, tried to get into my mind, to get me to do things. And that's why also in interviews, for instance, right, the interviewer can use certain tricks to get you to say what he wants to hear, so that he can, right, it may not necessarily be true, but it's possible. So you have to be aware of what you've done, and then to keep track of that, to always remember who you are, because otherwise they will paint a certain image of you. I'm just saying, right? And so there's people that I realize, because I have started to seclude myself a lot, and then suddenly a lot of energy was flowing through me. Just energy, right? And I would spend time with people, and they would pick up on that, and then they try to extract that energy from me by giving me drugs. That's what happened to Oppenheimer. I'm just saying. That's a fact. And he let it happen. Well, I have the feeling that, and now comes the interesting part, if you think you're like a kshatriya, I have the feeling you can be like freely used. Because I came here, I had no real purpose. I just followed some intuitions. And the only one I picked that up from is actually Nas, N-A-S, it's a rapper, where he speaks about having an owner, somebody who owns him. So the question is, who's owning the owner? And is it actually true? Right? Who's owning the owner? So why are you looking for someone to control you? Why are you giving up responsibility? I mean, I'm struggling in many ways where I simply say, I just don't want to get into like some kind of a random relationship. I mean, I've met the only woman that I'd like to be close with. And everyone else is just not interesting to me. But there are certain things where I really feel like I have no choice. Literally have no choice. Like, from the moment I've been with her, in a way my life has changed. The question is, has her life changed as well? Are we changing in relation to each other? And was Nas looking for a new owner just because he was lacking? Or is that in his very nature? Like, are there some people in whose nature it is to be something like... I mean, why does it happen to so many people? So Justin Bieber was apparently being managed by his parents, right? Because he was discovered at a young age. So they could have a famous son and then gloat over him. And then, you know, get lots of money. And he had to live with the consequences of probably never really knowing who he is. It's hard to say, right? I mean, it's a haunted existence. And now somebody has discovered apparently my potential, got me to make lots of art, and now I have to deal with the consequences. Which is, well, it's gonna be hard for me to lead a normal life. Which I felt like I can never do anyway. Which I feel like I have been trained to give up on a long time ago. But who's saying then, you know, what's your purpose? All I can say is I had no idea what I was getting into, but what I have realized is that this world is very toxic. The question is if it has always been like this. I mean, if you look at nature, then nature's like a hack job. There's never just beauty. There's not a single environment on Earth where it would be super nice. Only super nice. It is always soft and hard at the same time. So sometimes I'm going through processes and I start feeling so weak, so and you know what that usually is. It's always getting back into comfort. It's always this getting back into comfort. For a second, right, you're in nature, you're hiking 30 kilometers, and then you come back and suddenly you're here and you feel so lazy and so weak, and you've got all the food you could want and you're eating it, and then suddenly you're supposed to go back into nature. Like, I said I was gonna do another 30-kilometer hike, but I didn't do it. Okay, why didn't I do it? Because I made lots of art. I created a lot of content. I'm working on my newest album. Because let's face it, in this world you have to claim the land by buying it in order to be able to use it in the way that you'd like to use it. So I cannot act like I have things because I don't have freedom. And if I go amongst the people, they can sniff it that I have something, and then they want that. So I cannot go and spend time with everyone, right? I have to like be very conscious about when to leave the house because people are really strange. I mean, the other day, my neighbors, they put out food, and I went down to get the food, and somebody came, and I was just friendly to him. And then I came back from a hike, and I asked, like I talked to him. And he literally he came back here and smoked a joint, waiting for me to come out of the house so he'd know that I actually live here. I don't know whether that makes sense to you, but sometimes it's better to just say nothing. Because now what's that guy doing? You know, every time I leave the house, I check whether there's somebody standing in the corner holding a knife or a gun. I mean, is that a nice existence? But this is how you would live if you'd live in the Amazonian rainforest. You'd have to watch out for predators. And if you do not watch out for predators, so there would be certain times where you would clearly not leave the house. And right now, there's a very bad vibe. Despite the nice weather, I don't know, it seems really treacherous. Because I have the feeling that there are people that somehow focus on me. They want something from me because they know I've got something to give. But I'd rather give it to the people who actually want to spend time with it from a distance than to go to the people that, you know, would like me to be real close because they try to control me again. And as hard as it is to control me, it is also super, like, I have an open mind, which means that if I go somewhere, people can get into it. And if I go somewhere and people can get into it, like, people can call me from a distance and I suddenly react to it. So I have no 100% clear perception of who I am. And that would be then like, if you compare it to somebody like maybe the Dalai Lama, something like this, right? So there are certain beings that kind of like gave up on themselves and they just give it freely because they've got something to give. They have no sense of self in that sense. They simply give whatever they have, and that's their purpose, right? They're here to give. And I have met a lot of people that just wanted to use me, my energy, for their own selfish purposes. That's all kinds of people. And so it's actually quite painful to be used in such a way. In a sense, I do have the feeling like I may have met a woman that wants to change that, because I have the feeling she likes me, but I cannot help but hate being myself at times. I cannot help but hate being myself, because I never really know what's going on. And you know, there's like people on the outside, but then there's all kinds of other things that I perceive. Right? So there's always like this shadow part. I simply learn to deal with it. Right? What happens if you open your third eye, but you can never really say what it is that you're seeing. All you can do is, what are you feeling? I mean, this is a bit like Avatar Aang going into the spirit world. Like, there's not just one avatar, there's several. And that's basically people who live with one foot in the spirit world. And the spirit world has all kinds of names. You can call that the underworld. You can call that I don't know how you would call it else. The underworld, spirit world, the never never. It's that which is outside of what you can touch. But I can sense it. It's like I can feel these things moving around. Which is why if I talk to you and I feel like your shadow's trying to creep into me and get me to do things, like you're trying to take over my mind, like this struggle between Aang and the Fire Lord, I have to protect myself against it. I don't know, it's just a little bit annoying. And all I can feel is, you know, I just want to get rid of this kind of energy. And it makes me a little bit sad. Why it has to be like this. I'm wondering if it has always been like this. I'm even wondering if this is actually myself, because how can I have the courage to hike 30 kilometers and then get back home and feel so vulnerable? How is that possible? How can I have the courage and the stamina to work, to hike for 30 kilometers in bare feet and then get back home and feel like I'm like a snake that just has shed its skin? Question is that what has happened? Because, you know, I'm in my ascendant, I'm a Scorpion. So I have just pushed through several of my boundaries and I feel really vulnerable. And I have had these moments before. Only usually I've had them with psychedelics, and now I'm starting to have them just by pushing my boundaries, by making new experiences that change the way I have previously seen myself. The question is, why can I not just be strong? I mean, what is this? Why is it always, you know, why can I not be on the battlefield every day? Why do I have to hide? Why can I not just hike all the time? Why do I have to make so much art? Why do I have to heal all the time, you know? Where's the injuries coming from? The emotional injuries. I receive like energetic blows all the time. This is seeing people who stand in front of you, they look like this, right? But underneath it, you see them like having knives and hatchets and weapons. You know, that's like Kali, I don't know, the war goddess or something. And so, I mean, in a sense you could say I've got some kind of poison. So I'm a Scorpion, yeah, but what does that mean? Because in that sense I never touch anyone. But there is things happening that I cannot really do anything about. It's just happening. But the more out of balance you are, the worse it is. So the more you feed your shadow because you want to feel powerful, the more A, self-destructive you're going to be, and the more B, the more self-destructive you're going to be, and B, the more vicious you are going to be towards others. Because if you feed your shadow because of the way you live, think, you know, the diet, if you smoke or not, you're going to be overly suspicious. And you're going to hate me no matter what I do. Just because you try to get to my light. And all you know is shadow. So all you see is suspicion. And now that I'm talking about this, suddenly everything starts to change again. The question is, why do I have to do that? Is there somebody listening on the other side? Right? So ferocious humanity to me is clearly that there is another side, and that you can see that. But whether or not you can see it, it's happening anyway. So the reality that Tolkien portrayed in The Lord of the Rings is simply the way that it is. I mean, that is what you can clearly see. This world, the society, is the orcs, and everyone who lives here is really distorted. They have, like, you know, if you look at politicians or news reporters, they are like this. But you can sometimes not even see how they really are. Why? Because of all the makeup they wear. But all you have to do is look at the people who live here. They clearly look like orcs. Clearly look like orcs. And then you look at people like the certified health nut. Why the heck is he bleaching his teeth for? What does that have to do with health? He thinks it's healthy to have white teeth. Well, you know, the most ferocious beings, then I would say maybe it's like cats. Well, I cannot see them having white teeth. They're always kind of yellow. So, to me, it's about pretending less that you're super nice and accepting that you're as vicious as everyone else. So everyone who comes and acts nice, that's who you have to be suspicious with. You know? That's the guy who gives you candy, you know, at a playground. Like, gives your children candy at a playground. That's the first lesson you should teach your children. Never take anything from anyone. Doesn't matter what. No candy, no drink. I mean, I met people who hand out drinks to people just to bind them to them. And then they take over their minds, you know, and they make sure to never take anything from anyone. I have turned into Mad-Eye Moody. I bring my own food, I eat my own food, and that's what I can deal with. You know, I cook my own food, I do my own food, because I don't want you to bind me to yourself. Because every time that happens, you know, everybody has some kind of vicious intention. Nobody just gives you something. Nobody just gives you something. Everybody wants something in return. And everything changes you in a certain way, which is why I rather cook my own food. I rather, in a sense, stay by myself. You know, I'll see what my life will turn into. But I'll probably lead a more laid-back existence. I can no longer see myself living in a commune, because those times are just not right. But who knows what's gonna happen in 10 years' time, but I don't think this will ever be possible. But yeah, if you have funding, if you have money, then find things to invest that in. Find projects that you find you can support. Find land that you can populate without building buildings or draining swamps or something, but just leaving it the way it is and then living in a natural way on it. Because we're all spirits, sure, but we also have to stay with each other, but also for ourselves. So one of the things that needs to be clear is one man, one woman, you cannot fuck around. And that's what I find really important. And so yeah, it is survival of the fittest, in a sense. And if you do leave some part of you on the internet and you're asking yourself why you feel so terrible, well, because you're missing the point. You know? The internet in that sense is its own reality. And if you produce content, then people will start channeling stuff into you. Because they will sit with your content, spend time with your content, and there will be a lot of people that will just use your image to hate you. Which is why, in a sense, it's really smart to produce content really far into the future. So that the energy that they focus on, like if I listen to, or if I watch a video that I have produced last year, I am no longer that guy. Which is why anyone who watches that, you know, is shooting past me. You know, if you watch it and you think you can hate me, you're shooting past me. And that's the genius. Which is why, yeah, today is maybe the 14th of June or something like this. And this video will come out sometime in September, I assume, 2025. So that's more than a year after. So what I'm doing is, at the moment, I'm simply creating a lot of content. So I can just leave that to do its own thing. And sometimes I simply have to hold my ground and then not leave the house because there's something happening somewhere else. But I don't know, it's just annoying. Because you cannot exist entirely just in the spiritual world. I feel that there is also times where you need to emerge. So yeah. I think I'm covering a lot of topics with my content that I find relevant. And I'm simply trying to express them in all kinds of ways. And so it clearly remains a challenge. And it is possible that I will stop producing content in this way. Because it is too time consuming, but at the same time, I don't know yet, right? I will have to see. I mean, it barely leaves me anything else to do. Right? There's always another project. For how long am I supposed to do that? Phew. Cannot say. Okay, time to move on.